who has asked the families of 6 hostages whose bodies were found over the weekend for their forgiveness.
2 U.S. Marines from the USS Wasp were attacked during a port visit in Izmir, Turkey, according to the U.S. 6th Fleet.
The Marines, who were dressed in civilian clothes, were assaulted by a group of 2 women and 13 men linked to the Turkish youth group.
Police in Kabul reported a suicide bombing on Monday that killed at least 6 people and injured 13 others.
The explosion occurred in the southwestern Kalabakhtiar neighborhood, according to Khalid Zadran, the Kabul police chief's spokesman.
The U.S. has seized a plane belonging to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, transporting it to the U.S. on Monday, according to the Justice Department.
The jet, a Dassault Falcon 900X, was exported from Florida in violation of U.S. sanctions.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host or guests and should not be interpreted as statement of fact. Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee here, please?
Isn't that nice? What do you mean? Who's doing things to me now? Don't be doing things to me now. Oh, how dare you? Well, look at that. I don't know. I think I look fat. That's fine if you think I look fat. You just don't tag me in your fat head.
And hot.
My dog is your mind's best friend.
I'm a lumberjack, and I'm okay.
My dog is your mind's best friend.
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with a Dog. You make me laugh.
Go ahead, laugh. I'm making you laugh. Go ahead. I am making you. Now laugh. I guess I'm not making you laugh. I don't hear you laughing. Get out of my face. Oh, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. It feels like a hump day. I don't know, I feel like I'm getting humped. It feels like hump day is Wednesday, I guess, September 4th, 2024. That's what it feels like. But it's also feeling a little chilly out there. And hopefully it's not chilly where you are. Summer is gone. It left. The calendar turned over 1 month, and summer said, I'm out of here. You're on your own, Mind Dog. New York, Long Island, Ho-Hum Beach. Yeah, Ho-Hum Beach. That's right. I'm talking about Ho-Hum. I'm looking at you, Ho-Hum. Big ferry war going on here with Ho-Hum Beach, Fire Island. You know, they call it Ho-Hum Beach because it's pretty not supposed to be fighting over ho-humness, but they're ho-humming each other, which is a whole other story. But it's about a racial divide. It's about money and who pays to keep them people out of my beach. Really, this is the ugliness of the America we live in now. The stock market is trending for some reason, and I can't figure out what the hell it is. It's up, it's down, it's over 40 grand in this 40,000. Looks up, but there's still some people who are running around. The sky is falling. The world economies are about to crash. Everything's going to hell. And it just feels like, I don't know, first week of September. Also, Nicolas Maduro has decided that Christmas will be in October this year, if you're in Venezuela. Now, first of all, this is very confusing to me. I wonder. I mean, I think. I mean, I'm confused. I mean, I don't know what to say about this. First of all, it's supposed to be the celebration of the birth of Jesus, but he wasn't really born in December. They built that around a pagan celebration or something. He was actually born in April, but now they're going to move, or at least Venezuela is going to move his birthday again from December to October. Why? I don't know. Maybe he likes dressing up as Santa and when it's still warm out. I don't know. I think it's fine where it is. If we have to have Christmas, and I'm not a big fan of Christmas because it's always a very depressing time for me. It's not about. Nobody seems to be having like a spiritual moment at Christmas. It's all about killing each other for dolls and toys and. But why we needed to move it to October now? Why don't we just have it in the middle of July? That's a good time to kill each other over consumer goods and stuff, right? Oh, yeah, I was going for that. I don't even know what the Elmo doll. I just don't. I just don't know. R.I.P. Paul is trending. Paul being a guy who had gun freaks sucking his ass on the internet. Paul was a guy in love with his gun and was pretty much advocating just shooting everybody every day. That's what he did. He had videos that taught people, we should just shoot people we disagree with. I say rotten hell, Paul. Some people are, oh, Paul, I can't believe he's dead. Well, you know what? Live by the sword, die by the sword. But he didn't die by the sword. He just died. He just died. Nobody left to shoot. Whatever. I don't know. This is the world we live in. Our friend GD is not with us today. And when I say not with us, I think he's still alive. He's having hearing problems, which I have hearing problems every day. I can't hear a damn thing, but I'm here, right? We're going to meet a couple of authors today. The first one in hour one, Matt Warshauer, I think. Why can't anybody just give me an easy name to pronounce? Matt Napo. That's easy to pronounce. I think I do you all a favor, making my name very easy to pronounce. Matt Warshauer, I think. We're going to talk about the American Paradox. He's got a book out called Creating and Failing the 9/11 Generation. It's not my fault. That's all I want to say. We could say, you did it. You created and failed those people, but not me. That's not my fault. I didn't create any generation. I created one kid. He's no longer with us, I'm sorry to say. So I didn't take part in this thing. And societal trends, and it's not on me. Whatever the world is doing, I'm against it. We know this. Whatever it is, I'm against it. I'm like a modern day Groucho Marx. So whatever you blame it on me, blame it on somebody else. Let's blame it on GD. He's not here anyway. In the second hour, E.M. Sorensen, which is an easier name to pronounce. I'm going to talk about his vampire books. He's got a vampire book called The Unusual Life of Paulie Zahn. Paulie Zahn, not Paula Zahn. And this is what I'm confused about, because there is I don't know, semi-famous news person, news anchor, cello player named Paula Zahn. She's not a vampire. I'm pretty sure she's not a vampire. Although I'm not positive. She's not a vampire. Anyway, that's what we're going to talk about today. More books, authors and books. Authors and books and books and authors. I'm really concerned about this American Paradox, though. I feel like, I don't know. I'm in over my head. Because whatever is wrong with the 9/11 generation. It wasn't my doing. I don't want to be responsible for it. I just want to get out of this world on my own terms, which means dying in my sleep, but not like choking in my sleep. Just snoozing on out. Just like a long continued dream that never ends. Like today, because I didn't sleep the night before. When the alarm went off, I put it aside and I said, you know what? Can't I ever call in sick? Can't I ever say I don't want to go to school today? Can't I ever just be dead for a day? No, maybe not forever. Or maybe someday it will be forever. But not today. Unless the best is yet to come. If you know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm saying. Do you know what I'm saying? Who's in the chat room bothering me already? He's a grouch and a Grinch. I don't know if I'm a Grinch, just because I don't understand. This is Ian saying I'm a grouch and a Grinch. I just don't understand, or because I don't like Christmas. I don't like celebrating the holiday because it always feels. It's not. What the hell are we celebrating? We're celebrating buying stuff that nobody needs, nobody wants. What is it? It's just about moving the economy, and let's do it in October instead of December. Well, then you're messing up the whole. Maybe you're just giving more people more time to bring it back. I don't know. Anyway, we're not doing that in America yet because the war on Christmas has moved south to Venezuela. All right. It's time to play a commercial and then bring in the two guys who actually made it here because they don't have a problem with not hearing anything. They're actually fine with not hearing. They prefer not hearing anything. And then we'll meet our first guest. So stay tuned.
With humble East Coast beginnings in 2015, Daily High Club is the premier destination for glass water pipes, vaporizers, and consumption accessories. If you're looking to elevate your smoking game to the next level, you're in the right place. With over 1 million top-quality smoking products sold, and with a growing base of over 10,000 monthly subscribers worldwide, we deliver the ultimate smoking experience.
We got nothing.
But Daily High Club is not just a retailer. We're lovers of the smoking scene ourselves, working with giants like Tommy Chong, Snoop Dogg, Chanel West Coast, and more. Ready to join the Daily High Club? Let our experts curate your collection with our awesome El Primo monthly subscription box, or grab one of our fun and unique pieces from our smoke shop. Click the link in the description below this video to get this party started now.
This party started now. Hey, look at a lingerie thief. Is stealing my spot. He doesn't.
That where my lingerie went.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right.
Damn it.
Ladies and gentlemen, right now with me in the room, if you can't smell it, smell that. That's Stephen the Anarchist. I don't respect anybody who doesn't respect me. I don't know what questions to ask Ortiz. And up in the left-hand corner, we have Mr. Who Stole My Lingerie, Ron Kane. And we don't have my best friend of the last 37 years, J.P. Richardson, or otherwise known as the Big Bopper. So I just say, good morning, everybody. Merchants, buy shit from the store. That's it.
Hey, hold on.
Now yeah.
What?
You go ahead and select you, Ron.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, Mind Dog TV. If someone comes in your ear, you can't hear.
Wow.
Wait,
well, I
was
congratulate
good.
you guys. I think I have it right though. You guys prefer not to hear, right?
No, my legs don't work. I need my ears still. I can't go full Helen Keller. I'll be fucked.
All right, I want to address something with you. What is this respect thing you got? You got like a respect hang up. You're posting about respect. Oh, you don't respect me. What's your problem? You disrespectful little bastard. Go ahead.
I have a problem with this. Happened twice yesterday, just out in public, just with random people. People who are so fucking entitled and think that they are entitled to everything from everyone, and they have this mentality of like, whoa. You're disrupting what I'm doing. So now I'm gonna be a piece of shit to you and treat you like shit. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't give a fuck what you've been through in life and all that shit. If you're gonna be an asshole to me, I'm gonna bring it back. I don't care who you are. It just doesn't matter.
It's a very interesting thing you bring up is this, because it seemed like an age thing. It seemed like ageism. Like you were like boomers. Boomers are demanding to be respected for their age.
It's very much boomers. It's very much the older crowd who are like, I'm your elder, respect me. And it's like, you're gonna die first. Shut up.
Well, we're going to talk about your generation being. I don't know if you're really the 9/11 generation. You're pre 9/11 generation, right?
I'm 91, not 9/11.
You don't look 91. You look pretty good for your age.
Thanks, man.
Willie Nelson's 91. He's not looking so good for his age, but he's still out there playing. But I think, I don't know. You can call it curmudgeonly, whatever. As you get older, as you've lived your life, you feel like you are entitled to some credit for the experiences that you've had, which are not necessarily academic learning, but life learning lessons. And whether you're right about that or not, you still feel like you deserve some extra credit for that. It's just natural. When you get old, you're going to treat kids the same way. That's all I'm saying.
Here's the thing. I already treat kids like shit, and that's fine. But I don't expect them to respect me back either. But okay, here's the thing, right? I've had 40 surgeries in my life. If every time I heard somebody say, "Ooh, I don't feel good," or "Ooh, I have a sprained ankle," and I was just like, "Oh, you fucking pussy. I've been through everything you can think of that's medical, and you're going to be a baby about that?" No. Like, how about you be a fucking decent human and be like, "Oh, shit,
wait. Have you ever had your penis? Have you ever had the hole in your penis drilled?
I've had catheters. That's close.
No. Drilled, like with a Black and Decker.
Nope.
I win.
Okay, but you can have a
I didn't win.
penis.
That didn't feel like a win. I just want to put this out. It did not feel like a win.
Here's the thing: you would get both. You would not get my respect, but you would get all of my sympathy.
All right. Well, I appreciate
all
that.
of it. Yeah.
Stay tuned for our next segment when we talk about our medical ailments from our teens.
Yes.
No, I hate. No, don't do that. That's the reason I
this
avoid
is long in my past, so I don't. Right now, I mean, if you want to talk about my. Oh, by the way, in the big poll, ass cancer won by a long shot. Like ass cancer over brain worms. I think ass cancer got. I think it's 86%. More people would prefer to die of ass cancer than brain worms. I say it's easy to say that until you get ass cancer. And then you'll be like, I hate this because why did this happen to me? Why can't this happen to somebody else?
You can cut out so much of your intestine and have your butthole sewed up and get a colostomy bag and all that. You can only lose so much of your brain.
I think I proved that you can lose a lot more than so much.
I guess that's true.
Yes.
Even if it doesn't make sense, it's true.
Yeah, I have like an endless supply of brain I could lose.
What are you, stupid or something?
Let's have a word from the worm now. Christmas. Am I a Grinch? I mean, I'm not a Grinch. I mean, yes, I don't like the Christmas thing, the holiday season, all of it. I think it's phony. I don't feel like it's anything spiritual. Even hardcore Christians don't seem to really have any spiritual connection to the holiday. I can see Easter. I get that because that's what the whole religion is built on. But the moving it makes absolutely no sense. To moving it to October. Venezuela is moving Christmas to October. I didn't give a date. They didn't say October 25th. I don't know. You guys, any thoughts on like why?
So, first and foremost, I fucking hate the holidays. But 13 years in retail will do that to you because it just shows you how fake the holidays are and what people really just take it for. It's just to buy and get shit. That's all it is. There's no spiritual significance at all. It's not. There's none. So I can't stand the holidays. As far as being in October, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've heard that Jesus was really born sometime between like September and November or whatever. Who fucking
No,
cares?
it's springtime. April or May.
Then why is Easter then?
Well,
Who wrote
Easter
the
is about
calendar?
Easter is because it was supposed to be around the Passover celebration for the Jews, and that's how come Easter is at a different time every year, based on that.
I can't believe you would say that, Stephen, because when I'm shopping for Christmas, I can't tell you how many times when I grab something off the shelf in the store, I get down on one knee and I grab an American flag and I wipe it on the ground and I pray to Jesus and I say, "Thank you for letting me buy this."
For all you Second
well,
Amendment people who are mourning Paul today, you can go to New Hope, Pennsylvania, or somewhere in Pennsylvania. Just shoot him. That's what you do.
That's dude. Listen, man. Working in retail, I saw, dude. Oh god, the fights. Or like, oh man, I love Christmas. I can't wait to see my son open this, and it's a copy of GTA 5. And I'm like, yeah, what better way to honor Jesus than to kill hookers and do drive-bys? You know, it's just like, what are you doing? Like, it's just
I don't.
The whole holiday was ruined for me. The whole thing.
I think my best friend of the last 37 years, Mr. J.P. Richardson, wants to come in, but it looks like he's either green screened himself out of the picture, like he's in hiding or something. So I'm not going to bring him in until I see his ugly face.
The thing is, he might have.
Back to the Christmas thing. Let me just say, because it feels like a Woody Allen movie. Like this Maduro is a dictator, and he just got up one day and said he feels like moving Christmas just to fuck with people. It's a very weird. I don't know. Like I'm dictator. Because I can move Christmas today. What else can I do to really mess with people's heads? I don't know.
I would move tax day by 4 days. And then I would make Thanksgiving like January 2nd.
Well, Thanksgiving is an American thing, but let's take that as an example. He wanted to change it from a turkey to a bed bug or something. That's because he can. Because I'm dictator. I can do whatever I want. Instead of a turkey, let's have a cat. Let's eat a cat on Thanksgiving.
Thank you. That makes more sense because you can't carve a bed bug.
Well, if it's big enough, you got to grow them big. 15-pound butterball bed bug.
It's possible.
Yeah, 15-pound butterball bed bug. Say that 10 times fast. Go ahead.
15-pound butterball bed bug.
Yeah.
Butterball bed bug. Butterball bed bug. Butterball bed bug. Yeah.
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 It's time to meet our first guest. Are you excited about? Because it's not your generation, but you. I think if I'm going to get blamed for it, you're going to get blamed for it too. You were around.
There's
I don't feel like I should be blamed for it.
What are you talking about?
The creation and the creating and failing of the 9/11 generation. Failing.
Oh, okay.
I didn't fail them. I didn't create them. I didn't fail them. I was around when they were.
I may have failed them a little bit. I was making jokes the day it happened, so. I'm a bad person.
I don't think that's what this is about.
I don't know what it's about either. I'm excited to hear about it now, but let's go.
The American paradox and whatever that means, because we have this idea about how America is supposed to work, what it's supposed to be about, and everybody kind of makes their own assumptions based on what a group of wig-wearing, crazy English dudes who just wanted to be left alone from Britain had in their minds almost 300 years ago now. I mean, come on, have we not moved on from those guys? I mean, listen, I appreciate what they did and why they did it, but I have no connection to George Washington, even though he fought for this to be free from Britain. I wouldn't mind speaking English. If it wasn't for Washington, we'd all be speaking English right now.
Hey, you know what? I'm honestly a little pissed we don't have the accent. I'm not gonna lie. I
don't think we would have had the accent. I don't think we'd necessarily have the accent. Anyway, JP Richardson is here. JP, can you hear us?
Holy shit, he's green now.
He's green. He went from red to green.
Oh.
You're
Hi,
a
buddy.
you're a weird man. No, your audio's all messed up, dude. Have you tried restarting your computer? Yes or no?
It's just like this because he's coming to us from beyond the grave, everybody.
I did not know that.
He's in the waiting room for Beetlejuice.
All right. Oh well, your color's better.
Oh.
Your color's better.
Hey.
How's the shrunken heads down there?
Yeah.
No,
Oh, that
something's
mic is
weird
not
with-
good. That mic
That mic is not good. I don't know. I don't think it's a new mic. What did you change since yesterday? What were you doing overnight? You were doing your little plausible videos.
You know, I told him.
All right, Willie. All right, Willie. Here's what you got to do, Willie. Go back to the airport, get the power cord, and plug it in, and then restart your computer.
You know, I told him when he was going to
I'm
do his.
putting you out of the room. Why you work on your technical issues, and you just let yourself back in whenever you feel like you got it down, and if you don't, we'll just like call Paul. All right, get out. All right, let's meet our first guest. See, this is what happens. We're a technical mess on this program every day, and none of it is my fault.
Just technology.
Hey, well, the Wi-Fi is not as strong in the underworld, you know.
Okay.
True.
Matt Washower. I hope I'm saying his name right. Why can't anybody just be Joe Smith? Matt Washower is fascinated by the American paradox, the essential quandary in the qualities that define the United States. Whatever, and I'll ask him what those are, because I don't know what they are, and how often we fail to achieve the most noble sense of what America is and should be. His most recent book, Creating and Failing the 9/11 Generation, is the real story of September 11th, which whatever the real story is. I mean, we've heard everybody who thinks they know the real story. We've heard the official government 9/11 report story, and nobody knows what to believe. But I think Matt Washower. Good morning, Matt.
How are you guys?
Hi. Good morning.
sir.
Listen, I got to begin with, first of all, I have a friend who has ass cancer, and it's fucking horrible.
Right.
Second of all, I don't want to know why Mind Dog had his dick drilled. Third, I want to know why the sitcom had 40 surgeries. I am not saying another word until I hear about that.
Yeah, why?
Okay, so the surgeries. So my back was broken at birth, and so the doctors.
Your mom didn't like you?
No, not at all. She still doesn't.
It was the kids in the neighborhood that were stepping on the crack. If you step on the crack, oh no, you break your mother's back. That you don't break the kid's back. I take that all back. I don't know what I'm talking.
Miscommunication there. To be fair, it was probably the drugs is what messed up the communication, but. So my back was broken. The doctors were like, well, they discovered it when I was a year old. The doctor's like, well, we want to fix it, but we want to know how it healed and how he's still moving body parts he shouldn't be moving. So basically for every surgery they did, they got to do an exploratory surgery for a medical study. In return, basically every surgery they would do, they would mess something up on accident or leave something in there. And basically it snowballed to where I lived at Riley's Hospital for 4 years, basically having a surgery every 6 weeks or so, almost, give or take.
Ron, do you have a small violin? Yeah. I could use a little violin music.
I could piss you off because you're black.
I mean, it is what it is, man. I mean, I could have had 40 surgeries. I could have had none. Either way, my parents sucked. So, like, it would have either been that or something else. So, I mean, I just look at it as I'm glad I made it through. I helped my brothers and sisters, and I get to make people laugh.
All right.
Fair enough.
That is fair enough.
Fair enough.
Now, the whole dick drill thing, that's the first I'm hearing of it, too. So, no clue.
All right. I'm showing you the book, Creating and Failing the 9/11 Generation right now. I have a link, a short link to the Amazon page where you can find that book. In the description, it's scrolling across the bottom right now. Now, you are the author of this book, and it feels like I don't know, feels a little blameful. I have not read the book yet, but just the title feels.
Why do you feel so blamed for this? I was hearing your intro, and you feel like some weight has been put upon you, and I don't know why.
I do, because the failing part. Well, if I create,
guilty in some way.
I do, and I didn't before I got up today.
That's
but,
not true.
All right. Maybe you're right. I did feel guilty my entire life. I've always felt guilty about lots of things. But I was around on 9/11. I feel like this is something that was completely out of control. But when I look at creating and failing, I think, well, who created because I'm an American. I was a part of America. I've always been a contributor to America. For what it's worth, a good portion of my life has gone into the government of the United States. So I am in some way responsible for everything they do because I work to support them. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
It absolutely makes sense.
Okay.
So you are a contributor then.
I am, but I don't want to. I'm not a willing contributor. Here's the thing. I didn't think about this in advance. I didn't think about 9/11 as a intentional, let's create a generation of people who are terrified by terrorism, terrified about what the world has become, what might happen at any moment. I never thought intentionally, let's create a generation of people who are scared of other people.
Is any generation ever intentionally created? Generations are created by the circumstances of the culture and the society in which they've grown up.
That's a good point. But
It's
I
true.
do think
your generation was like
the hippie generation was intentionally trying to create a generation of peace, love, and dope. And that's where I came from anyway.
But even that was an attempt at counterculture to counter the generation and the cultural influences that they didn't like. So there was clearly intent there.
Right. Before it was Islam, it was communism. The thing that they wanted us to be afraid of. And this is where my takeaway from.
And this is where the failing comes in.
Okay. It's like the government always creates this boogeyman for us that we're supposed to be afraid of at all costs without ever thinking it through. Because I look at communism in itself is not something to be afraid of. You can be afraid of a communist dictator that wants to take over and enforce their will on you, but the systems are just there to serve the people, and all of them can be used, misused, or just really corrupted in a lot of ways. So it's not the system that we need to be afraid of. It's evil people, and this comes back to my question about good and evil. Are they constructs of the human mind, or are they actual forces like gravity, electromagnetism, and all that kind of stuff?
So, you're gonna have to have the Pope on to get to that one, but no, I think they're definitely, whether or not they're elements of the universe, right? We can't know that, but we do know that they're created into constructs and utilized. And you talk about evil dictators. Well, I refer to in the book, I refer to Osama bin Laden. He became the 9/11 generation's boogeyman. And the Bush administration trotted that out as far as they could possibly take it. And then when they wanted to move on from bin Laden, they immediately went to Saddam Hussein as the evil overlord. And all of that was done with intent. It wasn't an accident. It didn't just simply unfold magically. There were plans in place, and they utilized it. And that's what I think in a lot of ways has failed the generation and has hurt America in huge ways.
All right, well, let me go. I'm going to try to bring J.P. Richardson in, whatever his name is. I'm going to try to maintain this. Let's see if we do. Wait, this. Hold on. What's going on? It just wants to change it. He's saying no. Don't bring him in. Okay. All right. I don't know why he's scared of coming in. Go ahead.
I was thinking about it, and I think I would most definitely. I think my generation would be the 9/11 generation, simply because the Middle East has been the boogeyman in general my whole life. Because I was born in '91, right? That's like what, around Desert Storm, and
You were
then
10 years, 10 years old at
yeah,
9/11, right?
and then when 9/11 happened, I was 10, and then
You're
I
definitely
was
not
pretty
another generation then. Definitely. You're at the core of it.
yeah,
You're the
yep.
same age as
Because
as a bunch of my nieces and nephews. And I mean, so was Bin Laden the boogeyman for you?
oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, not just Bin Laden. Unfortunately, I was scared of just brown people in general. If they had a turban, if they looked anything Middle Eastern at all, I was petrified. I had
So
nightmares
what
of
so
planes
what's your
crashing into things
opinion?
all the time because of it.
So
It was
so
horrible.
what's your opinion of government and the reaction to 9/11?
Pretty much a total mistrust in the government. I mean, everything from what I think was a shitty investigation to not taking care of the first responders and the victims to, just to the response after 9/11. They've kept everyone on this fear pedestal with this color ranking system, So my whole teens and 20s was, oh, I don't think we're traveling this weekend, guys. We're on red level. It was dumb, but
Well,
it
there
was
you go. That's
so
failing the 9/11 generation right there. This is a generation that has never seen functional government in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's unique. That's different from any generation in American history.
Let me ask you this, because the creating part still has me a little hung up. Do you? We have not been. I think you would agree that the 9/11 Commission report left a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of holes. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to say they're not telling us everything that that there is to know about this stuff. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that.
Do you?
But there's the potential conspiracy component of that, but then which we'll never know, right? Maybe someday a file will come out, right? But equally as important, in 559 pages, the 9/11 Commission spent, the purpose of the commission was to explain how, and this is important, why this event happened. And they spend a ton of time on how. They spend about 6 pages out of almost 600 on why. And they purposely leave that alone. And the two co-chairs of that commission later write a book afterwards in which they discuss the fact that, well, we didn't really think it was our charge to discuss American foreign policy and what we've done in the Middle East and why bin Laden and so many others in the Middle East are pissed off at the United States. And oh, gee, actually, it's not that they hate our freedom. It's that they fucking hate our foreign policy and us blowing up everybody in sight. And bin Laden says over and over again, is Muslim blood the cheapest in the world? Do you think that you can just kill us and that we don't have sons and brothers and fathers and uncles who are going to stand up and respond to this? That's what 9/11, that's what the commission fails at worst. And that's why the third chapter of this book is specifically titled Why. This generation has not had, and most of America has not had explained to them, why did 9/11 happen?
Well,
Why
we try, we grasp at straws, but it was 100 years in the making, right? Or even more.
Without question, 100 years in the making,
it-
but really in the making. So 100 years in the making of policy, but then you really got to look at our involvement in Afghanistan with the Russians in the 1980s. We create the Mujahideen. We train them. We teach them the trade craft. We teach them how to make IEDs. We teach them how to funnel money. There's one bin Laden unit guy who says we brought enough C4 into Afghanistan to blow up New York City.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
go ahead.
a lot of it's our own fault because like you're saying, we train those people. Bin Laden was an ally at one point. Then the Afghanistan war ended, and we fucking left the country. We're like, yeah, you figure it out. We didn't.
Yep.
We did not rebuild. We just left. We trained all these warriors. Then we're like, you figure it out now.
Well,
So
let me just say 1 second there. Be careful with saying it. A lot of it is our fault because we already established that I have a guilt complex on this. So a lot of, if you're going to say it, a lot of it is our fault except Matt. Can you do that?
Well, no, and also, I remember in school. We had an after school like politics club, and we ended up having it shut down because we were discussing like, why did this happen? And we got to this point where we were starting to be like, holy shit, this is our fault. Like how can you go somewhere and blow up a bunch of people constantly and not expect something in return, right? And as soon as we brought that point up, the principal's like, nope, it's anti-American rhetoric. We can't have that in the school, and they shut down the club.
George W. Bush went to, after 9/11, not long after, he goes to West Point and gives a commencement address in which he literally says, nothing we did invited the wrath of killers. And then he said, it's not like they gave us a list of complaints. And I'm like, dude, did you not read the Declaration of Jihad in 1996? It's literally a list of complaints.
Yeah. We're always looking for one person to and I agree. Cheney and Bush were, but they weren't the start of it. It started with Bush 41. It started with Reagan. It started before that. It started back after World War II. I mean, this is colonization. You can keep going back, but so I don't think we can land on Bush, right? Or do you agree?
No, I agree with what you're saying, that it goes further back than that. But you can't just punt that way. You got to look at what we do in the 1980s in this attempt. I mean, we literally set a trap for the Russians. We invite them to go into Afghanistan specifically so we can give them their own Vietnam, and we train these dudes. And there are plenty of allies. Benazir Bhutto of Pakistan, the president of Pakistan, literally contacts George H.W. Bush and says, we're creating a Frankenstein's monster here. You better be careful. The Russians, before they leave Afghanistan, tell the CIA, listen, you better be careful the amount of training you're given, because these are the guys, they're going to come back and they're going to slit your own throat. And the CIA's response is, oh yeah, but the radicals, they're the best fighters. They're the ones who are willing to go in and die. And so we're going to keep training them. And
right.
we make that is a major turning point for us. So that's one component of it. The next component of it is, what do we do in the aftermath of 9/11? Do we take some time to contemplate and learn anything? No. The Bush administration and Cheney and Rumsfeld go straight into Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11, and they blow up the entire Middle East, and we're still feeling the effects of it to this very day.
All right, now there's so much here, but
I know. That's why I wrote a book.
Yeah, I know. But the consensus, because I feel like as we're not just failing the generation of the 9/11 kids, but from a understanding of all the crucial things that go into any of these issues, I think we failed everybody across the board as far as giving them an understanding. I remember rooting for Afghanistan because we were told to. Our government said, this is Russia's Vietnam, and they're going to take what we, but not accepting any responsibility. Us, the United States, creating our own Vietnam and not being able to do it. And they were like, yeah, we should be rooting for Afghanistan. We should be wanting this to happen to Russia because they're our adversary. And, that's not necessarily true, of course. But all this stuff it's like we're not informed enough to really understand. We just come at it from a team, rah-rah, us against them mentality around the world. And coming back to the bigger question of what America is supposed to be, I don't know where that fits into this idea that we feel like we should be the superpower, the police of the world. We should be the gem of planet Earth where everybody looks to for.
I'll make it real simple. We should do more good than harm. We should be a force for good in the world. That's what we should be. If you want to get it down, I mean, we are a country. So you say you're not connected to George Washington and the founders at all. I would argue that you are, and you just don't want to know it.
That could be.
Right? I mean, we are founded on a very simple concept. And it's two things. One, that we have the right to govern ourselves, representative government. That's number one. Number two is that we're a society based on human rights and that human rights matter. It's that simple. And do we believe these things or do we not?
Yeah, I don't think. See, this is where, and I don't want to go back to that whole. But with the wink in the eye that we believe in human rights, we know what we were actually saying. Not for everybody, for white rich people.
We believe in human rights as long as it fits our narrative. That's it.
Yeah, and that's gross. Like with the kind of money we spend on killing, it would take a portion, just a small portion of that to do so much more good. And then everyone would be like, "Yay, look, an American," instead of an American. Like that's part of the reason I don't want to travel, because now as soon as they hear I'm an American, they're gonna be like, why is he here? You know, like it sucks. It's so much better.
Listen, we can do so much good. And let me give you a perfect example of this, right? So one of the major turning points for America, there's tremendous sympathy for the United States, even from countries like China and Russia and Iran. In the aftermath of 9/11, there was tremendous sympathy. It's when we decide to go to Iraq that the tables turn on us for many different countries throughout the world. And we go in and we destroy this place. And there's the last chapter of the book is called the World Generate, 9/11 in the World. And I go into a lot of detail about how other countries feel about the United States. And here's what I wanted to tell you that's really interesting about doing good rather than bombing shit, right? So in 2003, 2004, remember that giant tsunami that hit Indonesia?
Yep.
Right? Indonesia is a secular government with a massive Muslim population. And everybody expected Indonesia to have cholera and all kinds of just a disaster after that tsunami. And instead, what happened? The United States military went in with one of their two hospital ships, a ship called Mercy. And they went in and they flew mission after mission after mission and brought medical supplies and water. And the opinion polls of America in Indonesia went through the roof. And Indonesians love us to this day because of that. One simple thing that cost a fraction of firing a dozen cruise missiles.
Right. Well, because how do I phrase it? Every mistake we've made, I think the people who made those mistakes, who were in charge of making the decisions to make those mistakes, Vietnam, you can talk about any of the places we've gone to with, I think those people had the best intentions. I think they believed that communism was a boogeyman that we needed to be afraid of here, and we needed to stop it there, which anybody with any bit of foresight could see, well, that was kind of foolish. But I think they really believed that. So I think, we thought we were doing something, even though it involved bombing and killing. We thought we were saving a group of people from another group of people that were really an oppressive force. We were doing it. I don't know. I hate it coming out of my mouth. Saying the best intentions feels naive, but I think people actually believed in the cause.
I think with Vietnam there was an element of that. I think with Iraq it's very different. I think that has to do with the plutocracy. I think it has to do with oil. I think it has to do with the sheer thirst for power. And the Bush, the neocons, they thought that they literally used the term cakewalk in terms of going into Iraq. Right. That they thought it was going to be cakewalk, that shock and awe, right? And they plan for 18 months for the invasion, and they plan for a month for the occupation afterwards.
Right.
Do you know how long the United States planned for the occupation of Japan during World War II? They spent 3 years planning for the occupation of Japan. They spent a month thinking about the occupation of Iraq. And right, Japan's an island. You can control who goes in and out of it. Iraq is in the middle of the East. How are you going to control the borders?
Right.
It's going to turn into a sectarian civil war killing field. And that's exactly what happens. And these arrogant motherfuckers think they're just going to waltz into Iraq, this country with this long history, and go, there's a great Economist article in the magazine The Economist where when we try to basically superimpose American capitalism on Iraq, and they have a cover that's like the Great Iraqi Yard Sale, right? That we're just going to waltz in and go, oh, it's American style democracy and capitalism now. Woo!
Yeah.
I have a question. Can you hear me okay, guys? This is my first time trying to.
I don't know. Can you hear that? Do you guys hear that? I don't. It sounds like a bug.
Two
It's
questions.
another effing GD Fenderson, dog.
Two questions here. First of all, what do we call? I don't know, since there are two Matts here. Are we calling you Matt W, or what are we calling you so we don't call the other guy?
Well, there's Matt and Drill Dick.
You just call me sir. Or how about no? Try this on for size. Massa.
Okay.
Oh my God.
All right.
Dude, that's bad.
This is why there's violence in the world, Matt.
I'm not talking to Massa.
I'm not put on some blackface there.
I was making a joke.
I'm not talking to Massa. I'm talking to Matt now. So Matt,
all right, GD, what's up?
Okay, since the military-industrial complex is not really a living, breathing entity, it's actually a conglomerate of a bunch of stockholders, basically. So, if by some chance the law was changed so that corporations did not have a first duty to their stockholders, and let's say their first duty was to the public, do you think most of this would have been avoided? Because every war just gives stockholders more and more money, so their incentive to make war is tremendous, since that's what they really want is money. They don't really give a shit about how they make the money. It's just that they found a way. So
sounds like what Eisenhower warned us against.
Yep. Yes, and yes. If you are in the military-industrial complex and your business is creating weapons of war, the last thing you want to do is see all your product sitting in a warehouse. You want to move that product. And so they are interested in perpetual warfare. And 9/11 was the biggest godsend to the military-industrial complex that we've ever witnessed. Right?
Well, it wasn't just a godsend, because their philosophy was never let a good disaster go to waste, I think it was, or something along those lines.
Right, yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
I had another question, but you can go ahead, and if you can address that first.
No, I mean, Karl Rove, who was the campaign manager for George W. Bush, in an interview, he said, sometimes history gives you things, and history gave us 9/11.
Yeah. Here's a problem. I'm good at finding the problem, not so good at finding the solution. But anytime an American points out failures of the United States of America as an entity, we are not considered patriots at that point, even though we are looking for solutions to how we can be a better country and be a better people. We are automatically labeled as anti-American, anti-patriotic, all that kind of stuff. So to even have these discussions, you put yourself at risk for being the enemy. Do you agree with any of that on any level?
Of course. I mean, it depends on which group we're talking about, but
you can say that if you wear a flag pin. If you wear a flag pin, you can say that. But if you're wearing like a little yellow ribbon, then you can't.
My question.
So you're writing this. Well, let me finish this thought because it was tied into that. You're writing this book,
and it's about how we failed the 9/11 generation. We're at a point where we're burning books because it's not patriotic. It's not. You're not carrying. You're not waving the flag enough and saying how we're infallible. As America never does anything wrong, and so they're going to burn your book. And so, because
well, I hope a few people read it before they burn it.
Yeah.
Well, they can buy it, but they have to buy it first. They have to buy the book so they can burn it, right?
And trust me, I'm not the one making any money off of this book, so.
Yeah, but nobody writes it. First of all, I'm just going to assume that you wrote the book with some hope that, first of all, people will read it and that people will think about what it actually says and what it actually means, and might actually take some actions to better themselves. And that's probably going a long way. But the hope, you don't write a book like this if you are hopeless. If you're a pessimist like me, you don't write a book. You kind of keep it to yourself and just say, we're doomed. So what's the point of writing?
The epilogue of this book, I started out by saying, and this was a long haul for writing this one. And in the epilogue of the book, I started out by saying, it's 3 a.m. I'm awake again, writing notes on my phone. I can't sleep after the day's writing. My wife rolls over and looks at me and says, this book is killing you.
I've been there.
There you go. It's been a
yeah.
very difficult book to write. I've spent the last 10 years teaching a course called 9/11 Generation, meeting with college students and talking to them about this subject, and had some very deep conversations about it. It's a difficult subject to discuss, but it's so incredibly important. I still firmly believe that 9/11 thus far is the most momentous and important event of the 21st century, not just for the United States, for the world.
Fair enough. I think it's hard to argue against that. I mean, if you look at what it's done to the outlook of the world as we are not, because Reagan, we can criticize Ronald Reagan for a lot of things, but one thing he put out there was this idea that if we were invaded by an alien force, we'd realize that we are one planet and not a bunch of different countries and all that stuff.
I pray for it every day, man.
Had an opportunity. We had an opportunity after 9/11 to bring the world together.
Right.
And the Bush administration chose to go in a completely different direction. And I've argued many times that those twin towers fell across the road to the 21st century. And we had two routes to take. We could have gone the route of international law and order and recognized that this was a terrorist act, and we could have brought countries together when they reached out to us. I mean, Iran reached out to us and helped us.
Right.
Or we could go the route of, you're with us or you're against us. Fuck everybody else. We're going to go fuck shit up. And we fucked shit up. And where are we now?
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say real quick, because George W. was not really in control, so to speak, of the things that were going on. Because the reason I'm saying is because if you listen to him, he did two speeches. One was he addressed State of the Union, and then a live speech afterwards. Each time he said that people tell me that the Iraqis cannot govern themselves because they do not look like us Americans. And he said that twice on live television. And so, first of all, the people talking to him, the average person on the street is not the one that's talking to him. It's his advisors that are talking to him. And if they're of the mindset that Iraqis can't govern themselves, he did finish that sentence by saying, I reject that. Both times he said, I reject that. So if in his heart he rejected it, what made him go along with it?
I mean, I don't think he rejected it. I think that, that Bush was he was a born again Christian. That influenced his ideas. He at one point referred to it as a crusade, and the people around him tried to walk it back. But he's surrounded by Dick Cheney, who has his ass so far up George Bush's ass, or his arm so far up George Bush's ass, he's pulling all the strings. And Cheney is the evil overlord in all of this. So is Don Rumsfeld, and they've got two things in mind. One is what they refer to as a Pax Americana, peace through American power. They want to control the world. I mean, they write this very, very clearly. And then the other thing that they believe is that Vietnam is a fluke and that we could have won, and that going into Iraq and kicking ass and taking names will erase the failure in the memory of Vietnam. And instead, what does Afghanistan and Iraq look like? Vietnam.
Yep.
Right.
So my question was real quick, because I don't know if you address it in the book, but what are your thoughts on the two types of people that came out of the 9/11 generation? You have the people who question everything, and there's a lot of distrust in the government and everything. Then you have the people who came out that are like hyper patriots, the ones that are, I only buy American. If it's not made here, fuck you. If you're not pale, I don't care. Like they're just like, they're all in super hyper patriots. Seems like those are the two types of people that came out of it.
Well,
Wow,
there's a
man.
third group though. There's a third group. There's a group that doesn't fall in either camp. Some people just want justice and truth. They're not afraid. They're not paranoid. They just want answers.
Well, right, and that's what I mean. Those are the people who are like, who question everything. The people who are like, no, I don't take what the government is giving me at face value. I want truth. I want the answers, because there are questions and they're not being answered.
But there's some people that want. There's some people that don't trust, but they don't want answers. They want their answers.
Right.
The conspiracists. But I'm not
those
talking
are
about
the-
conspiracy. I'm not talking about conspiracists. I'm talking about people who want actual answers, not stuff that fits their. In other words, if I go out and find out that my father was actually the one in charge, I would say, okay, I own that. Let's do something about it. But if somebody says your father was involved, they're like, I don't think so. I think it was your father. Because I want it to be somebody else's father.
Isn't that where we started this program, with me not accepting guilt for all this stuff?
Sitcom asks deeper and more philosophical questions than the Dick Driller does. Okay, so all right, so sorry, man. Right? So listen, it's a super, super important question, and it's something that I only really got my head around as I was pretty deep into the writing. And the answer to this is there is a 9/11 generation. They're not Gen Z. There is a 9/11 generation, but they're not monolithic. Just like none of us react to a situation or a catalyst or something that occurs, we don't all react in the same way.
Right.
Different groups of people react in different ways and arrive at different conclusions. So those who become super patriotic about this, the catalyst is still 9/11, right? The far right, those who have real distrust of government and see the Patriot Act as a threat to digging into them and investigating them, 9/11 is like, don't trust the government on steroids, right? And then there's other groups that are just like, I think a big portion of your generation, of the 9/11 generation, were just sort of hitting the head with a mallet, because they're looking around at 8 or 10 years old and they're watching their teachers just freeze. They're watching their parents in hysterics. They've never seen adults like this before. The most shared generational experience in America is on the East Coast, with parents flooding into the schools and grabbing their kids and whisking them home. And they're watching that loop of the second plane fly into the tower over and over and over. And it never freaking stops. It goes on for 10 years.
Right.
How is that not going to corrupt the minds and the spirits of an entire group of kids?
Dude,
I got a question. I got a question though. If the government can't do anything and can't function, can you please explain how the government can pull off complex conspiracies like this?
Well, I mean, that's actually an easy question, right? You're talking about the difference between governmental democratic function and the legislative process, and having to run things through a Congress. And democracy is notoriously messy and slow and difficult, versus covert operations.
Well, no. I mean, what I love about conspiracies and the people that, they're, especially like with 9/11, It's like these are the same people that are always telling you that government can't do anything, but yet they can pull off something that grand.
Well, but
When when in the end, really the conspiracy, but in the end, the conspiracy theory is just it's the sleight of hand. Like, look over here while we govern shitty.
Well, if I can just quickly address that, I don't think the idea that this is not quickly. I don't think the idea that those conspiracy ideas are necessarily government. I think it's more military industrial complex. Not necessarily like they sat down and planned it all together, like you take it, but who's profiting the most out of this? Who has the most to gain? The government doesn't, in their eyes, we don't, they're about power and which party controls stuff, not necessarily serving the people. So, these benevolent policies and programs are not easy to push through because it's all about power. But when it comes to profit and the people that are actually pulling the strings of the politicians, they can move pretty quickly and get things done.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think it's you take advantage of a bad situation, and that's what the government did.
Yeah,
exactly. So you can go in a number of different directions and talk about, the sort of level of conspiracy and things like this. I think what was just said is exactly right. Is you always have to ask, if you're even going to contemplate a conspiracy, you got to ask why, who benefits, and certainly who benefits in this situation is the military-industrial complex. And like Karl Rove said, history sometimes gives you things. It gave us 9/11. And it gave us an opportunity to do things. I mean, listen, it's just very, very simple. Without 9/11, there is no invasion of Iraq. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
And if you look at where America would be I mean, we're talking about where the world would be right now. But if you look at just where America would be right now, our debt would not be nearly what it is. Our unity would not be as divided as it is because of all that wasted effort. And here's what I'm getting to. You talk about Bush, and he was, I think most people would agree, he was not the brightest bulb on the tree. And led around by people like Dick Cheney, who, if you go back to the 1980s and see Dick Cheney in the Iran-Contra hearings and all that stuff, you know who this man is. He's not a radical liberal, as the modern day right wing would have you believe. But so the idea, because leadership, I think, because we've been told this idea that we don't need the best and brightest in leadership. We need them to surround themselves with the best and brightest. But I think clearly Bush did not, George W. Bush did not, he wasn't intellectually up to the challenge of understanding the opportunity of 9/11 versus the challenge of dealing with the attack of 9/11, but the opportunity to heal and look at the world in a progressive way. He didn't have the intellectual capacity for that. And I think it points out we have to really kind of look for leadership that isn't stupid.
You know what? I always said that George Bush, and he says this in every interview he's in, he always talks about how he was a wartime president. I think his outlook was, I'm going to go down in history as a wartime president, and he played into that. Climbing out of the fighter jet, wearing the bomber jackets, right? He played into that hardcore. I think Dick Cheney was the puppet master of everything that happened. I think he was just war hungry. But I think that George Bush was just like, cool, I get to go down as a wartime president, like my daddy.
See, but here's what I don't understand about Bush, about W. Bush, is that, about Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was Secretary of Defense during the first Persian Gulf War, when H.W. was president. And when the first Bush, didn't go into Iraq, right? They pushed Iraq out of Kuwait. They stopped outside of Baghdad, and they said, we're not going into Baghdad. We're not going into major cities. Cheney himself said, that would be a disaster. George H.W. Bush said that would be a disaster. We're not going in, and to go into these cities of millions of people, it's going to turn into urban warfare, and they know the streets, we don't. What a disaster that would be. Cheney said that. What changes his mind?
Profit margin. And profit margin. And I just want to say one thing. You said if it weren't for 9/11, we wouldn't have gone into Iraq. But I think that W would have found a justification, because I think he still harbored this little grudge, this imaginary grudge that they tried to kill his daddy.
Yeah, but what justification could he have found that would, short of finding a nuclear weapon or another attack by Saddam Hussein, which wasn't going to happen because he didn't have the capacity to do it, what would convince the American people to support another war in Iraq?
Yeah, the no-fly zone violations were rampant, but they weren't enough to convince us.
No, it had to be 9/11.
But they also
Isn't this kind of like Pearl Harbor? Just letting it happen just so they could join the conflict.
Let finish his thought, Stephen.
Okay, but they kind of were building another case with the quote imaginary weapons of mass destruction. Saying that he had those and he was going to use them. So
was that before 9/11?
And I think the culmination was after 9/11. But I'm just saying, if it doesn't matter if 9/11 hadn't happened, that I'm just saying 9/11 made it happen faster. But if 9/11 hadn't happened and Halliburton and them really wanted to go in there, they would have gone. Probably their backup plan would have been the weapons of mass destruction.
I don't think they would have been able to marshal enough strength. They would have had to prove that there were weapons of mass destruction, and they were never able to do that. And in the March after 9/11, you've got a number of UN weapons inspectors who are going before the UN and saying, "There's nothing there. We didn't find anything. There's not going to be anything there." If we had found one picture of U.S. Marines standing in front of a pile of WMDs in Iraq, it would have justified our entire invasion, and it just simply doesn't exist.
Wow.
But listen, if you can't use the military and kill American soldiers, what is capitalism then? You got to roll the dice, baby. You got to make some money.
Anti-patriot, anti-American.
No, what do you mean? That's all American. That's what America is
No,
about.
I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about you being anti-American.
No, what do you mean? That's capitalism. How else are you going to make that greenback, baby? What's a few thousand American soldiers when you can make several $1 million?
That's what I mean. Your sarcasm is anti-American, and I think we should drop bombs on you.
No, I'm not anti-American. Then I can go to a football game and hold the American flag and get upset when people kneel.
I wish we had another hour for this conversation.
I've never stood for the anthem in my life.
My job here is now to get people to buy the book. Now, Matt, this is. The sequel. I hope there isn't a sequel. To be honest,
please, no sequels.
Yeah, I hope there isn't. The Amazon link is in the description. Now, Matt, you talked about how writing this book consumed you. Now that it's done, it doesn't seem like the consumption is over with, because there are some haunting ideas in this. And you talked about talking to the younger generation about that stuff. Are you more hopeful after having these conversations with young people about where we're going, or has this increased what I feel pessimism? Has your pessimism grown in the reaction to the conversations?
I'm more hopeful, and only because of the last few years, right? I had mentioned earlier that I felt like a good portion of the 9/11 generation had sort of been hit in the head with a mallet, and they just sort of sat there dumbfounded, and they didn't respond to much. And I remember when the march towards war in 2003, late 2002, 2003, to go into Iraq. A lot of the professors, I was a new professor, and a lot of the older professors who were entering retirement age, they had started their tenure as professors in the Vietnam era. And college campuses were just filled with protest and activity. They were the centers of political opposition. That is not what happened in the ramp up to Iraq. There were huge war protests, but it didn't occur on college campuses. And it seemed like the generation was just sort of dead. They weren't doing anything. But now, what we've seen in the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, is the final back half of the 9/11 generation. They are waking up politically, and it begins with this being fed up over the failure of government. And the first group to do this are the Parkland students, right? They get 19 of their fellow classmates shot and killed, the same amount wounded, and they sort of look around and go, shit, man, the adults aren't going to do anything.
Wow.
And so they start marching. And then that influences the Me Too movement. That influences the BLM movement. That influences the marches that have been happening against Israel in regards to Gaza. And so you have a big youth movement right now. And if Trump is going to be defeated this time around, it's going to be the youth of America that does it. They're the ones. If they don't vote, Trump wins. If they do step up and vote, Trump loses. And so the back half, that the tail end of this generation that's moving through adolescence right now, they're the key to the future of America.
Wow, I hope you're right. You know, you made me hopeful thinking about what you just said, but I just know too many young people who are reflections of the boomers who should know better, who lived through Vietnam and who've seen their brothers and sisters being called baby killers and all that stuff, who should know from the lessons that we've had. But I see these young people who are just caught up in this idea of us being superior in American exceptionalism and all that kind of stuff, and needing to run the world. And like
I don't think the youth that I'm dealing with, that's their mindset. I think it's more a matter of just feeling like there's nothing they can do, and they're right, they just want to live their lives, and they don't think the government is functional. That's the way it's been for a long time. But now, and I had a big question. This is really, really important to me. I had a big question as to whether or not this particular generation of students were even interested in ideas anymore.
Yeah.
Or all they wanted to do was follow influencers and consume and play video games. And I had a group of kids. I taught 2 classes over the summer. They're all freshmen coming into the university. And I went into the class really wondering if they were interested in ideas. And one of the classes I taught was this subject, 9/11 generation. And I was fucking blown away by these kids and how deeply they were thinking about things. And I walked away from that class with such a feeling of optimism, like, wow.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about democracy. We have this tendency to fall into these wells of despair. And then suddenly we regenerate. This is the story of America.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna buy the book, as much as I'm fearing that it's gonna tell me that I'm the guilty one here.
It's not about you, man. It's not about you.
It's everything is about me. You don't understand this, because in my brain, this entire world is my creation that only happens between my ears, and so all this is imagined. You are a figment of my imagination right now in my world. So you've come here today to make me feel bad about saying that.
It's not true.
All right. I do hope you come back, because we are out of time. We have to move on to our next segment. But God, there's so much to talk about here as far as where we go, how do we improve as a people, how do we improve as a world, all this kind of stuff. And I think that's really, if we really get down to brass tacks, that's what this book is asking. Is like, how do we stop fucking up?
Yeah. We've only gotten up to page 3 of the book.
Well, right. So what you just said is exactly right.
Yeah.
So when we experience trauma in our lives, a lot of times we have to look backwards and we have to deal with that trauma in order to figure out how we move forward. That's what this book is about.
All right. Come back some in the near future, and we can continue to get people interested in this book. I'm going to order it today. I hope the guys will. I hope everybody listening right now will.
Jimmy, you have a pop-up version? You have a pop-up version? Because I'm not big on words. No.
You want the color by numbers version?
Yeah. Oh, is that coming out soon?
careful saying color with him. We'll have to do a whole another show on that subject and do it enough.
Very much,
Anyway,
guys. This was fun.
thank you for being here. I mean, I really appreciate it, and have a great day. And please do come back in the near future.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Bye for now. The book is called Creating and Failing the 9/11 Generation. Look, GD's taking my spot as if it's like it's his show. I don't know where he got that idea from. Maybe Mary Rose. Was it Rosemary? I think it was Rosemary, not Mary Rose.
I think it was Rosemary also, because that name was triggering.
She's dead and nothing can bring her back. Just a line from either The Sopranos or Godfather. I think they both used that line. But stop obsessing over Rosemary, because she's not going to give you this show. And what's going to happen is I have to die for you to get this show.
So I get it next week. Okay, no.
Got something to hope for. That's something to hope for. Set your hopes on it. We're going to move to vampires in just a minute from this heavy subject of 9/11 and the 9/11 generation and all that America has done that were mistakes or sometimes intentional bad deeds, to lighthearted, but vampires. And I know, here's the thing. We know Steven gets really turned on by vampires. I talked about his sexual obsession. Well, yeah, his obsession with vampires. Hopefully it doesn't get really nasty like that. But I want you guys to make a note, because he said the Parkland generation. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity here. Remind me, do not let me forget that we should get a Parkland survivor or one of these kids who's now grown up but survived.
How about the congressman? How about the congressman from Florida?
Who? We got a 9/11. A Parkland survivor as a congressman in Florida. Who?
I think so. I can't remember his name. Young black kid. I can't remember his name. I'll look it up. I'll Google it while you introduce the next guest.
Do not forget and let me forget about this, because I think this is a conversation I want to have. Let me play a quick commercial, and then a really quick commercial, and then we'll get to our next guest. Here we go. If you're really feeling depressed or anxious by any of these conversations, relax, man. We got vampires coming up, but also
Mind Bloom is helping people achieve life-changing clinical and personal breakthroughs, alchemizing both the psychedelic medication, psychiatric care from psychiatric clinicians, coaches we call psychedelic guides, and a lot of content and meditations and programs into this really transformational experience that, because it's delivered at home, costs a lot less and is a lot more convenient for people to receive.
Yes, E.M. Sorensen is probably wondering what he got himself into this morning. Like, what the hell kind of show is this?
Jesus.
I think most of our guests experience that. We should have a therapy group for guests who come here not knowing what the hell to expect, and then the trauma that this show induces on authors and people who want to be taking a little more seriously than Stephen or the sitcom Ortiz wants to be taken, because he has no respect.
More people often than not, because I usually end up following them and everything, and I'll usually say a thank you for being on the show. They'll be like, "Oh my god, that was the most fun I've ever had on an interview," and I'm like, "Awesome!"
They do say that
all the time.
I think but that is like what people escaping a mental hospital will say. Wow, that was fun, but I'm not going back there. Right.
Maybe.
And that's what this is like. Well, E.M. Sorensen is a celebrated author of a captivating vampire book series. His latest book is called The Unusual Life of Paulizon, not Paulizon. He's here now to talk about vampires. Good morning, E.M.
Good morning.
Are you traumatized by the discussion you heard while you were in the background there?
No, I kept wanting to put my 2 cents in several times. That's right up my alley of the stuff that I stand on a street corner and yell about.
No, I'm not sure standing on a street corner and yelling about it is going to do anything that this show would not do, as far as making people think you're crazy.
Oh, well, I have a good time because I'm up here in Vancouver, Washington, which is a liberal area, and boy, do I stand out. I have a lot of fun with my MAGA hats.
All right, vampires.
I know them well.
You do?
Yes.
Well, let me just start by this, because the unusual life of Paulie Zahn. You know, there's a very, not very famous, there's a famous newscaster, Paula Zahn, who was the host of one of the morning shows for a while, a cello player. The closeness of the name, Paulie Zahn and Paula Zahn, because there's going to be some confusion there.
No, I didn't even think of that tie-in when I created this person.
Okay. Paulie Zahn is a male?
No, it's a woman.
Oh, whoa. See, now that's going to create some confusion. People are going to think you're accusing Paula Zahn of being a vampire.
No. She would lucky to be one of my vampires. They're a little
see, you got Steven excited already. The vampires. 40 years ago, when I was doing terrestrial radio, I had a guy, Stephen Kaplan, on, who was the proprietor of the Vampire Study Institute of America, based in New York City, and he completely believed in vampirism as a real thing. Is your belief system slanted towards that? Are real.
I actually, when I started writing it all, which was just 12 years ago, I thought about this, and a lot of it came about because I used to study stem cells, and I've had some stem cell work done on my body, and I really believe in it. And I know at one point the research people will be able to go in and regenerate our telomeres, which are the things that predict how long we're going to live. And if they can do that, we could live practically forever. So it's not an impossibility, but that's not where my vampires came from. I just created them to be different than anybody else has written about. My vampires have to eat food. They breathe air. They have pump blood. They have a heartbeat. They're almost human looking and acting. The difference is that when they became a vampire, something changed in their system. And the first thing is everybody thinks they run real fast. Well, my vampires can run, and they're a little bit more athletic than the normal human, but they can't go like you see in the movies, zip, and they're gone through the scene. It had to do with your nerves. Your nerves started, say, your fingertip, and that nerve feeling when you touch something doesn't go all the way up to your brain. It goes in steps, and they're short little steps, and they have to be transmitted. When a vampire changes, there's one continuous nerve going all the way up to the brain from all your sensory organs. And so that gives them the very fast reflexes that they do have. My vampires, they can't breed and reproduce a vampire. Vampires can only be made. And why do they drink blood? Well, what happened many years ago, billions of years ago, when they evolved, something changed in their system, and they lost a certain factor in their blood that they can only get from human blood. My vampires only need like 4 to 6 ounces of blood every 4 to 6 weeks, just a few drops. I mean, they can't drink something, even if there were vampires like they have in the movies and the books, they can't drink somebody dry. You have about 6 to 7 pints in your body. What if you doubled that? You blow up like a porcupine who just
I've never seen a vampire say, I'm good, I've had enough.
No.
But what if you have a bunch of fat vampires then? They just be like 400 pounds. No, I'm just kidding.
Be a fat vampire. Let's go.
Yeah, but you could just roll
Come
them
here
down.
so I can bite you.
So they just
Did somebody say steak? I love steak. No. It's not
the reason that the biting came about is your blood is really black until it touches air, then it turns red. What happens is they must have that blood out of a human without it ever touching air, because that destroys that one small factor that they need from the human blood. And evolution, they started to grow these canines with a hollow tube down them, which were like hypodermic needles, and then they would bite into a human vein or artery, and they get their little sample out. They'd go on living. Uh, if they push some of their blood back into that victim, as I want to call him, that victim would turn into a vampire. I also have a thing about my vampires is you can't have a young one. The person that they're going to convert into a vampire has to have reached physical maturity, become an adult somewhere around 18 or 19 years old. If they do it before that, the person will die. They don't survive. So, and that's brought up in the third book. But
now, are you fabricating this, or are you taking this from actual Transylvania lore, or because
no, it
there's
doesn't.
there's a lot of folklore about vampires, and the original originality of it, where it originally came from, is not something I'm familiar with. But it, we hear different people to have different takes on where it came from and why this belief. Have you studied the origins of vampirism or the belief in vampires?
No, I made one up. It was easier. I don't want to clutter it with a bunch of facts. Then they want to do back research and they want to accuse me of falsifying it. I just made it up, thinking to make it fun. One of my early reviews on one of my books was I had a scene where the person over at Travis McCord Air Base, and she went up a street, and somebody wrote back, "My husband was stationed there, and that street doesn't go in that direction." I go,
"Wow,
it's a fiction. Come on."
Yeah. Well, I think that we can file that under nitpicking. File that under nitpicking. But I am curious about, because when you talk about this, something in there, they need this facet of human blood.
Right.
That ties into a lot, or maybe doesn't tie into, but it suggests the same kind of thinking of UFO or alien abductions that people talk about. Well, their race is dying off, and they need this human element to continue the race. It all feels, and I'm wondering if what you just said about that is that part of the typical vampire mythology or not, that they need our blood in order to continue surviving, or elements from our blood.
I just came up. I don't know why I came up with that. I never wrote anything until just 12 years ago. I sat down, I wrote a book, and that was my first book. And then I wrote two more. I have 3 and 4 and 5 in works. But the reason I started writing was I just got bored with the same old, the vampires they were cookie cutters. I'm going, that's not real. And it's like when you use magic, you can make it do anything you want. And these vampires, they were making them do anything they want. And I was trying to put a rein on that, to have actual limitations on them and make them a little bit more human. They could be, well, I had one that lived next door to me, and she moved away with some other guy, and that upset me.
I could understand you being upset.
I also got I just got tired of reading so much. I read a lot. I might buy this week. Actually, I've already bought 7 books, of which 6 of them I will trash after I hit page 40 because the story is boring. It's dull. There's no plot line, unrealistic characters, and so one out of 5 or 6 I will keep and read through. So it's hard for me. Especially if I get a book where 15 pages of descriptive, the color of the furniture in the room.
Yeah. It reminds me of my ex-wife. It would drive me crazy when I asked her about, how the day go, and she started with getting up and the sun was out and the flowers were blooming and they were blue, whatever. Like, can we skip to the chase? When do we get to the chase here? That part of it. I understand that in modern literature. I think there's a big tendency to say, I have to develop the imagery, the characters. I have to do a complete description of it, and to the point where I'm not allowing the reader any license of their own to kind of you see this as you make it their own or see it in their own imagination. I want to cover every last detail of it, and that can just kill your interest in anything. When you first started writing, when you wrote your first book, did you sit down to write a vampire book, or
the first book was the first book that I published.
Wow.
Anything before that?
Wow.
I was when was I? I was 72 years old when I started my first book ever. I never wrote anything. And I was in front of my computer. I was bored one day. And I thought, I started scribbling some notes, and it kept growing and growing. And I thought, I may just make a whole book out of that, not knowing what I was going to do. First thing I did is I tried to do a plot line, a storyline. And that fell through right from the beginning because I just couldn't follow it because I'm just a very unstructured person. And I'll never use a storyline. When I sit down to write, I don't even know where I'm going. It just flows off the end of my fingers into my little typewriter.
That's pretty scary from a creator's point of view, because I've been there, and that's pretty much but I don't know how I'm going to resolve this a lot of times. And there is a potential for painting yourself into a corner when you approach things like that. Like, how the hell? What did I do? I gotta backtrack and undo things now.
Got the delete button for.
Okay.
Actually, that's the second thing about writing. Never delete anything. Set it over in another file. Just keep going, skipping that, and maybe come back to it. Maybe there was something, a little nugget there that you could use. My first drafts of an entire novel are just, well, they're okay, but I would never want somebody to read it because they're going to pick it apart. But I use it as the focus of what I'm going to really write, and I'll go back through it a dozen times till I have it where I enjoy it. I still read. I reread my books after all these years. That's like I was 200 years old.
Yeah.
No, I enjoy them. Actually, when I'm writing a new book, I'll stop and I'll pull out one of the first three, and I'll just read them, and I go, "Wow, I like that."
Interesting thing that I have to ask you this, because if you're rereading something you wrote 5 years ago or something, for me, if I re-listen to work I did, I always find things I wish I'd done differently. Do you have that writer's remorse or author's remorse of like, Jesus, I was happy with it when I finished it. I thought it was good. Now I read back and I'm like, I wish I had written that differently.
No. I realized after I finished my first book and had to go back over it, I thought, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to leave it like that. I'll just take it as a lesson for my next time I write something that I'll remember and not go in that direction or use as that kind of a situation.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good mindset to be able to develop. I been creating pretty much all my life, and I just can't get. Every time I listen back to something I did, I think, wow, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. And sometimes I'm prompted to actually start from the scratch again and remake stuff, and that's
I
not
have
healthy.
the women here I wish I had done right with. God.
All right, since you're going to go there. The eroticism of vampires, because I'm fascinated by this. So many women, especially women who are into romance novels, like to tie vampirism into eroticism, into romance stuff. What is the fascination? Why would a bat be any more sexual than a man?
No,
they're cleaner.
That's one of my other things about a book that has a bad storyline. I'll get a book, and all of a sudden, I will hit a 30 or 40 page, nothing but descriptive sex. And first of all, I think, oh yeah, that's a women author. We're going to get rid of that. And I'm at my age. It's a figment of my imagination. I don't want to read about it. It's got nothing. It does not get me going anymore.
I hear you.
So we has no place. There's got to be a real story. and descriptive sex for 40 pages is not a real story.
Yeah, 35 is my max. 35 pages. After 36, you just
Yeah, right. Yeah, I
thinking
agree.
a
Yeah,
dead horse.
35 and a half, maybe. But a big part of the audience that likes to read about vampires wants that. They crave that. For some reason, I know Steven, he is like, when you mention vampires for him, he gets all horny and he wants to wear Ron's lingerie. It's just a thing. I mean, they're tied together. This eroticism and vampirism are. So, are you turning off half your audience by at least saying right up front that that's not your part of your writing?
No, I don't have a vampire that's Mr. Studley coming around. That's not part of my books. There's romance, but it's not in depth in the bedroom descriptive sex.
Right.
I mean, if they had sex, I allude to it.
Yeah.
And I with the story. I like the story. My first book was about a man. My next two primary person in the book, in the next two are women, and it's going to be women again in the fourth book. I've had a neighbor that says, "When are you going to write with a male feature again?" I said, "I don't know. I like women. I don't know."
Me too.
Their point of view on a lot of stuff.
Me too. I like women. I should don't tell my wife.
Me three.
Really? I'm surprised by that. Are the vampires the protagonists of the book? Are they the good guys?
They're both. There's two factors. There's the old factor that believes that the only way they should get blood from a human is by biting them in a vein. And then there's the new factor that doesn't want to do that anymore. And they can get it either originally in my first book, they get it by transfusion blood that they steal from the blood bank. Actually, they created their own. They were doing one of those things, platinum plasma centers. And they had people walking in and they would just pay them a little bit and they could keep some of the blood. But then they came up in the first book. There was a woman that was a primary person, and her dad was a vampire, and she was not. But she was able to extract that special thing out of the human blood that vampires need, freeze dry it, and pull it in gelatin capsules. They don't even have to bite somebody anymore or take a transfusion. Take a couple pills every month.
Wow. How do you write from the woman's perspective? I mean, it's a third party thing. The scriptures of this, right? You're not writing as the vampire in the first person. You're writing as somebody who I'm just guessing here.
Oh, no, make a mistake. I don't know what first person, second person. I am really bad at grammar, and that's why I have editors go over my stuff.
Okay.
Really find my spelling mistakes. I stick commas in just because I like them. They're cute. I have to have a lot of help there. So, and they do accuse me. You're writing in the first person, and you're not supposed to. I go, I don't understand what that is, and I'm not going to learn how. I don't care.
Yeah, all right. What, if I may, what was your profession, your vocation before you decided to become an author?
Let me see. I was drafted out of college. I was at Penn State. I was drafted out in 1961. I ended up staying in because I got into a special group of people. I was in operations and intelligence. And so I have an intelligence background. I'm actually in a club called AFIO, Association of Former Intelligence Officers, because it qualified me to be there.
Wow. And
I got out in 65, walked away from it, never had anything more to do with it until something happened later on. I went and sold steel. I sold sports cars. Then I worked for a shop that did nothing but prepare race cars. I have enough of an engineering background. I did a lot of design and development.
Wow, that's a very, very varied path. But why I asked that was because it's inspiring to me. If it was always your dream to be an author, that you took it on late in life, because so many people,
it's too late for me to do what I wanted to do with my life. You get to that point. I'm 70 years old. Wow, how can I possibly start something new now? And was it always an aspiration of yours to be an author?
No, not at all. I had nothing driving me to become an author or even write. I mean, I'd write silly things just to be silly. If I was sending somebody a email or a letter, I don't read letters, just emails. I would throw little zingers in there, and everybody always appreciated them. But it had nothing to do with me wanting to become a writer. One day I just started dribbling off stuff into my computer and let it pile up until I said, I'm going to make a book out of it. And that's how the first one started.
That is so wild. I guess congratulations on that, but being definitely a unique story in that, because I have never met anybody who became an artist without of any kind, no matter what the medium is, without some intent to do that. It sounds like you accidentally became an author.
No, it had to be. I mean, my history with English class, both in high school and college, was abysmal.